Hey guys, hey, I'm here at our Carpenter Realtors office in Avon, and I'm here with my friend Nate Mishler from Mishler Plumbing in Brownsburg, and we're here to talk to you all about a phenomenon we have here in Indiana, all too recently, which is frozen pipes.
Yeah.
Gosh, Nate, it's been kind of cold.
It has been cold. That is an understatement, I think. Cold is an understatement. It has been very cold. It's been freezing, as a matter of fact, which is why we're here talking, right?
Yeah. So tell me, obviously it's been below zero. We've had
Yes.
crazy kind of a January. What kind of stuff are you experiencing with your side of the business and freezing pipes?
We've had all kinds of stuff. We've had people calling in that are just getting into it, where hey, I don't have any water in my house. Everything froze up. What do I do? And then we've got people calling that my water lines froze last night, and then unfortunately now they've thawed out, and we have a bigger problem on our hands. And so we've kind of ran the whole gamut of different reasons people have called. But yeah, we've had our pretty substantial amount of frozen water lines.
Keeping you busy?
Keeping us very busy.
Yeah. So tell me, Nate, when a homeowner has a frozen water pipe like that and they call you, what kind of damage do you see what's it causing?
Oh man, it's again, it varies. We've seen some people with maybe somebody leaves their garage door open and their water softener's outside. And they leave their garage door open overnight, and they've got a small split in their pipe somewhere that's caused a little damage. We've had we had one this year that somebody had gone away for vacation and they forgot to turn the water off. Yeah. So that was huge home, 6 bathrooms, and their heat, for some reason, something went wrong with the furnace
While they were gone.
Yeah. The furnace had shut off. I think a blower motor had gone bad or something, and so the entire house completely flooded. So it can be,
So once the frozen pipe thawed.
that's the problem. That's the problem, is with the weather doing this like it is thousands of dollars, because what happens is, it freezes up. When it freezes, the water expands in the pipe splits down the side. And so once that pipe splits, the damage is done. Once the water's frozen, and you first time you open that faucet and you're like, okay, nothing's coming out, that's when we get nervous, because that's when the damage is done, when it's already. So then what happens is, when the weather warms back up, the pipes thaw out.
Yeah.
And then that's what happened to that home that we did. That was, it was cold for a week, and then it got above freezing for a day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, for a day, water just pouring out of everywhere.
While they're not home.
What
a tragedy.
Oh,
I want to reach out and say hi to Aaron and to Dell and to Patty. Appreciate you guys joining us. Don't hesitate to post any kind of questions you might have. Dell Phillips with Michaelis is certainly giving you guys a good thumbs up. I think you must do some business with them.
Yeah, Dell's. Yep.
Those are good people.
Yep.
I want to know a little bit more. Tell me, Nate, what kind of temperature? At what point should a homeowner begin to be worried about their pipes? Obviously, water freezes at 32 degrees. When should a homeowner start worrying about frozen pipes?
Well, we would say start worrying about it now in the summertime.
Okay.
Don't even wait for it to get cold.
Yeah.
But it's it varies. Like, when it actually is going to freeze, that's the one thing that we found over years of doing this, is that the one thing that's it's unpredictable. It depends on so many different factors. So many things. Depending on where the pipe is ran, what direction the wind is blowing, how cold does it get, what direction does the house face. There's so many different things, but what happens is, typically anytime it gets below 32, there's a danger of it possibly freezing.
Yeah.
And what we typically see is, once it gets below 32 for about 2 or 3 days, then then the phone starts ringing. We start hearing them come in. If we get days like it's -5,
yeah,
it doesn't take 2 or 3 days. Then if it gets down with the quickness, then it's usually a lot. We'll get those calls right away, but it depends on a lot of factors.
Okay.
like I said, if the wind's blowing the right direction and it gets just cold enough, it's but yeah, there's
okay. Well, you mentioned now's the time for homeowners to begin to think about that. Like today, I think it's probably 45 degrees out there. It actually feels kind of balmy.
Right.
So at this point, a homeowner should be kind of planning ahead and taking precautions. What would a homeowner do? How would they, if I'm a homeowner and I don't understand plumbing, or I might even be new to Indiana and don't understand what cold weather can do.
Right.
What should a homeowner do to protect themselves so that when the next 5 below 0 day comes along, they can feel a little more comfortable? What would they do?
Yeah, and that's a great point. Especially, we get people that are transfers from Florida or something where
California,
yeah, where it doesn't get cold. You go down to Florida and you see water heaters sitting in their attics, and that's just normal because they don't deal with that exposed piping. The biggest thing we tell people is if you want to 100% for sure prevent frozen pipes, the most important thing is to not run water lines through an unconditioned space. And we mean an unheated area. So the main thing is keep your heat on, make sure your heat's going to be staying on.
Yes.
And then, crawl spaces are a big one. Crawl spaces are always, make sure
we have a lot of those here.
Yeah, we do have a lot of those. And people think, well, my heat's on, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But if your crawl space has a door that's open, sometimes they don't keep their door closed.
Sure.
Or their vents.
Sure.
They've got the vents that let a lot of air through.
Homeowners should be looking to keep that stuff closed.
Make sure that crawl space is comparable to what's up above. Make sure it's fairly warm down there.
Gotcha.
Keeping that stuff warm. There's certain things like on trailer park, like in the modular homes where they don't have a choice. You're going to run it under the skirting.
Oh yeah.
And then they can wrap it with heat tape and then put some insulation over it.
Sure.
Different things like that. You've got to keep them. Now, again, we tell them in that situation, you're in an unconditioned space, and we're just trying to kind of help prevent it from freezing. What you really have to do, if it's not truly in a space that's warm, that's above 32 degrees, you always run that risk.
Yeah. Does the heat tape? Is that a good solution? The heat tape and
if you have
insulating the pipe, does that?
If you have no other option, it's a good thing.
Seems dangerous to me.
It's I've not heard of a lot of trouble with the heat tape. We've not had anybody that's really had a whole lot of issues there. I've heard a lot with space heaters, people trying to thaw their stuff out. And
fire hazard.
You got to be careful with some of that. The heat tape and the insulation is a good solution if you have no choice. If it has to be run somewhere.
Yes.
Maybe it's in a garage or, like I said, in a modular home under the skirting, something like that, where you have no choice. It's not going to get heated.
Yes.
Then it's a good precaution to take. It's not 100% foolproof that now it's not going to freeze. Another thing you can do too is if when it does. As soon as it gets to be below 32, it's not going to freeze if it's 33 or more.
Right.
So if it hits 32, another thing you can kind of do if you're last minute, no, I didn't prepare, what am I doing? You can always leave your faucet dribbling a little bit.
I've heard that. And before we continue on with that, I want to say hi to George and hi to Jason. Hi to Patty. Thanks for joining us here. Please feel free to post your questions or comments. We're happy to answer any questions you might have, or Nate's happy to answer. He's the expert here. So let's talk about leaving the water on.
Okay.
You hear that all the time. Tell me how much water should flow. Do you turn on the hot water? Do you turn on the cold water? Explain what a homeowner could do if they think there's a danger of their pipe freezing.
Just a slow trickle, probably a little bit more than a drip.
Yes.
You don't want to. You're not wanting to waste a ton of water. You don't want to run full bore, obviously. But just I kind of get going just past that, past the point of the drip, right where it goes from a drip to a stream. We had a home that we
just
bought.
So it's moving.
Our first home, my wife and I bought. We had somebody had done a remodel before we had bought the home, and they ran all the water lines through the attic.
Yes.
And so, knowing that was an issue when we bought the house, where we would do just that every year. I would just leave it trickling just a little bit.
Once it got like below 0, or just anytime?
Anytime it got below 32 or below.
Okay. All right.
Eventually what we ended up doing is putting in recirculating line for, like you would for hot water recirculating.
Sure.
Which was good because
that's something you guys do.
We do that.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah. But it ended up keeping that water flowing all the time, and so.
Gotcha. So it's moving water doesn't freeze as easy.
Exactly, and it was hot water, so it would always keep it nice and warm. So we ended up doing that for a while too, and that was we didn't have to leave the faucet dripping at that point because we had it constantly circulating.
Right. Now I also hear about like leaving cabinet doors open. Is that really effective? Is that worth it? I mean,
it is. It's especially if it's on an outside wall where there's a lot of cold air blowing up against the side of the house or something.
I have an investment property. The water lines run through the outside wall, and the back wall faces the west.
Oh, okay.
And there aren't any trees back there.
Yeah. It's not good.
It's kind of exposed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's not much extra warmth. It's worth the effort?
It's worth the effort. It doesn't make a significant difference. Like I said, it's the main thing you want to do is you want to make sure you're not running them through an unconditioned space.
Right.
Nothing is foolproof other than running it in a place where there's heat. Now,
Gotcha.
In that situation where you're talking about, like, does opening the cabinet doors means it's not going to freeze? No, doesn't mean it's not going to freeze, but it could be, like we talked about, it's very unpredictable. There's X has to happen, and then Y has to happen, and then Z happens.
Right.
But maybe with the cabinet door opens, that's just enough of a difference that it keeps it from freezing.
So it keeps we might only be talking a half a degree.
Yeah.
Doesn't really take a lot.
Yeah.
Just keep it from going below 32.
Right.
It might not be warm down there, but just a little bit.
Yeah. And so again, it's not, it's not the solution. We wouldn't say, hey, leave your cabinet doors open and you'll be fine.
Right.
But if you know that you have an opportunity for water lines to freeze, I would take any and every precaution.
Gotcha.
I could, if I knew I had some that were not protected.
Right, because the potential damage is easily into the thousands.
Oh yes, easily.
The tens of thousands. You probably see that kind of stuff.
You can. We've definitely seen a couple this year that were in the thousands. I don't know that we had any this year that were in the tens of thousands, but it's definitely possible.
Bart's talking about, welcome Bart, appreciate it. He's talking about insulating and sealing cracks in foundations, little things like that to keep air intrusion is probably a good idea. Welcome Mike, we're glad to have you here. Feel free to post. If you like what you hear, give us the thumbs up, give us a like thing. Tell me something, Nate. You're a homeowner, you're in the house, and suddenly and it's cold and one of the faucets doesn't work anymore. And you're pretty sure you got a frozen pipe. What's a homeowner to do?
Well, the first thing we're going to tell you to do is call a plumber.
Okay.
And again, it depends on your comfort level. There's so many different things, so many variables that can happen, and so many things. We would,
welcome, Kim. Go ahead.
We would say, give us a call, have us come out, see what we can do, see if we can help you get thawed out, get you up and running, because that's the danger, right? Is when once it's frozen, the damage is done.
Yes.
And so the damage is done to the piping itself.
Yes.
Once it thaws out, the damage to everything else occurs. So it's good to have a plumber there with you.
So a homeowner might think, well, you know what, I'll put a space heater on it and I'll thaw it out. The problem is you might get the pipe thawed out and then have a flood. And if you don't have a plumber sitting there ready to take action, suddenly what was a small inconvenience can be a major insurance job. And
exactly.
we're talking about carpet and linoleum and vinyl and stuff coming up.
Right. And there's a couple things you can do in the meantime, whether for the serious do-it-yourselfers that are like, I'm not calling a plumber, they're too expensive, I'm not gonna.
Yeah. We'll get that, right? We'll get that.
We know it.
Welcome, Ben.
For those and for the people who maybe say, you know what, I want a plumber, I'm calling a plumber, I'm getting somebody out here, I don't want to mess with it. But maybe when it's really cold, you've called a plumber and they're like, well, we'll be there in 4 or 5 hours. And you're like, what am I going to do for 4 or 5 hours?
Yeah.
There are a couple steps you can take.
Okay.
So first of all, the main thing you want to do is go shut your water off.
Yes.
That's going to be the very first thing. If you don't know where your main water shutoff is, you need to find out where your main water shutoff is.
Might be in the pit in the yard.
It could be
in the house.
You should have one in the house or in the crawl space somewhere.
Yes.
Technically, we're not supposed to get into the meter pits. The water company doesn't want you getting into the meter pits to shut it off. But you should have if you don't have a working shutoff valve in your house, that's something we can help with as well. But we'll be happy to come out and help you find your main shutoff if that's what you need to do. But you always need to know where your main shutoff is, because we have been on so many calls where somebody calls and my whatever is, and this could be summer, this could be winter, this could be whenever.
Right.
Somebody will call and I just broke the knob off on my shower.
Right.
Water spraying everywhere. I don't know how to shut my water off.
Right.
And by the time we get there, it's been an hour of water running solid. So you got to know where your main shutoff is. Very important to know where that is.
If you don't know, find somebody that does.
Exactly.
Call an expert. I bet you could find a water shutoff pretty easy.
We can find a water shutoff pretty easy, and if there's not one, we can put one in pretty easy. Yeah. So first thing you want to do is make sure your water shut off. As soon as it freezes, shut your water off, and then if you want to take it a step further and find the faucets that do actually still have running water, go ahead and open those up, bleed off the pressure.
Sure.
Because there is going to be, even with the water shut off, there's a lot of pressure build up in the piping. And so when it does thaw, what you're basically trying to do at this point is keep it to a minimum.
Gotcha.
You're going to have some, if it is burst, when it thaws out, it's going to make a mess.
There's going to be some water.
Yeah.
But a little water beats a lot of water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so shut it off, relieve the pressure if you can. Again, it's if you want to open some cabinet doors and some of that kind of stuff, always caution people. People have taken space heaters and tried to do things, and I've seen a lot of houses
water
burn
does and go to good weather.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So just be careful. If you do decide to go that route, be very careful. And again, it's good that if we're on hand, if we can be there with you, we can kind of control it and then get it all band-aided back together.
I want to welcome Chiquita and Chris just joined us. Welcome to our discussion. Feel free to make any comments or questions. We'll try to answer them here or get to them later. So what's a homeowner to do? Obviously, we want to make sure that we're not susceptible to frozen pipes. Should there, if you live in an area like this where it can be 10 below zero, should the pipes be looked at? Is that something you could do? Is come out and take a look and make sure that they're as protected as possible? Is that something that you can do?
Absolutely. We
just do a quick inspection.
Yeah. We love to help people with that. If somebody wants an inspection on their plumbing, just come out and take a look, give it a good health check, kind of look it over.
Sure, a lot cheaper than a flood.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Definitely. We're getting ready to here in the next few months. We're getting ready to roll out a maintenance plan, which will come out and flush your water heater and actually check over all your plumbing and make sure everything looks good.
Very good.
And so there's lots of there's a lot of value in just having somebody just come out and take a look and watch for that stuff. Yeah. Very good. Because if you can catch it on the front end.
Yeah.
Like we said earlier, when do you start worrying about it? You worry about it now. Is when you start worrying about it.
That's a good point, Nate. Listen, I hope you've learned something by this. It does get awfully cold here in Indiana. Water does freeze at the same temperature, regardless of where you are. Okay, maybe in Colorado it might. Looks like we have a question here from Nate. My sink, dishwasher, and washing machine are on interior walls. Does that change anything about the risk level in cold weather? That's a great question. That's a really good question.
Yeah, it really does. Again, it's the same. It's the same principle we mentioned early on in the beginning. Is if your pipes are in a conditioned space,
yes,
they're going to be okay. You've got to keep them somewhere where there's heat. Being in an interior wall, most likely you're in a place where it's heated, and
unless we're in a crawl space, unless the under.
Right. If you're on an exterior wall, there's a much greater chance that it's going to freeze than an interior wall. Being on an interior wall, there's things to consider. Like you said, if it's a crawl space, if the furnace shuts off, If there's no heat in the house, it doesn't matter where the water lines are, whether they're interior or not.
That actually brings up another question. What about a vacant home? If you're a homeowner and you're Florida bound, you're going to do a snowbird thing, or what if you have an investment property and there's nobody living there? Should those properties be winterized?
Absolutely.
What would you suggest?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're going to go away for the winter, definitely. Yeah, we tell people when they go on vacation for a week, shut their water off.
Yes.
If you're going to go for a few months, if you're going to be gone for a snowbird, for example, absolutely get it winterized.
Is that expensive?
No, it's around a couple $100 to get it winterized. Yeah. And you get it done, and you have the peace of mind. You go away. Yeah. There's so much stuff we can do. If you just want a free consultation before you go out of town, say, hey, come out, take a look. Let me figure out what's going on. There's things we can look at to help,
hey, Aaron,
to help prevent some of that stuff. We've got. It's with sump pumps now, they've got technology to where we've got Wi-Fi modules you can set up. So if you've got Wi-Fi in your home, if your sump pump gets to where it's rising up pretty high and it's not kicking on, it'll actually send you a text message. So you could be in Florida.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I hadn't heard that.
And cool. So there's different things you can do. So there's lots of stuff we can talk about.
Great. Nate, lots of good information.
Yes.
Friends, watch out for your water pipes. You don't want a tiny little freeze to create a major disaster. And Nate sees it all the time. I hear about it quite a bit, especially on vacant homes. So protect yourself. Listen, if you have questions about what to do or you need help, Nate, can you share your information? How would somebody reach out to you? Don't call me for your plumbing issues, okay? I'm not your plumber. Nate, how would they reach you for other questions?
However is easiest for you. We have, you can give us a call, 317-858-3089. And we got people that can get out and answer your questions or come out and take a look. You have a
website?
We have a website. If you're more comfortable sending in an email, we've got a website, www.michelerplumbing.com. You can get on there, and there's a contact form online on our website. You can shoot us an email, and we can reach out to you that way as well.
Looks like we have another question from Bart. Says, I believe pump alarms now might have a temperature monitor. That's interesting. And welcome, Brandy. Welcome to our Facebook Live. Brandy says, thank you for the information, for setting this up. We're in need of a plumber. There you go.
Awesome.
Brandy's a terrific gal, and she's out in Brownsburg, and I'm sure she'll hook up. So you know how to reach Nate. If you have any questions, you have any problems with that, send me a message. Listen, if you're watching this on a replay later, it's not live, still go ahead and post your comments, questions, etc. I'll follow up with each and every one. If it's plumbing specific, Nate will follow up. I'll make sure that happens. Thank you for joining us on our Facebook Live today. Did you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just thanks for joining us. We appreciate the opportunity to get some of this information out there. And if you have any questions, post, call, email, let one of us know. We'll be happy to help you out.
Listen, y'all enjoy your day. Thanks.
Thank you.